Boy, this is an intimidating circumstance with all of those women, I'll tell you. But I really am humbled and honored to be here amidst them all. It's really pretty special. I do want to thank Betsy Lauer for nominating me. That was pretty special too. And I also want to thank my family, because you always think your family knows you appreciate them, but you don't always know that. And so I want to take this opportunity to say we've always had each other's back, but I really want to say thanks for all of those years. Excuse me, I'm poor horse today. But for all of those years in which I had never-ending activities, and they accommodated me and put up with all of that. And also, they were always encouraging and supporting for whatever I wanted to do. Now, and I thank them. But you know, I was thinking coming over here, when I'm lavishing all that praise on them now, when they were my boys, I have two boys, and when they were teenagers, I kind of think that every time I said, you know, I've got a new project, they secretly did a family high five, being so grateful that project was not them. But it could have been bad news, probably. But our Alaska life began at Elmendorf Air Force Base. Tom was an attorney on a leave of absence with the Air Force, and so we were now transferred to Elmendorf Air Force Base. We didn't know anything about Alaska very much. We knew that it was way up north, and we were way down south. We knew that it was very cold, and we were very warm. And we also thought our next tour would be a cool trip to Europe at one of those bases. But when we got to Elmendorf, everything changed. We fell in love with Alaska. It was beautiful, it was majestic. And I have to say, most of all, it was about the people. Any of you that have ever lived on a military base will always respect and admire those families. They roll with the tide, they're wonderful, they're close-knit, and it was a wonderful environment to live in. And I also like to think that probably none of you have ever really lived to see energy until you spend an afternoon with a bunch of fighter jet pilots celebrating the 1969 landing on the moon. Lordy, could they celebrate? So our life was interesting and pleasant. When we came there, we brought our 2-year-old child with us. That was Tom the Third, because he was born in Durham, North Carolina. And while there, it became even more special because, of course, we had our second son added to our family while there. But in 1970, and we knew we were going to get rotated sometime in Alaska. We really liked Alaska. We loved Alaska. And in 1970, all of you, I'm sure, sitting in this audience remember that Alaska had solidly planted its feet into the oil boom era. And I'm telling you, it was a hotbed of excitement. Jobs were everywhere. People were pouring in from everywhere. It was really exciting. And I thought, why, in Alaska, if you can dream it, you can do it. It wasn't long after that before Artique Ltd. Was founded. And that was kind of interesting too, because I had a partner in those days. She was a lovely artist friend that I met on Elmendorf. And she and her husband had moved into Anchorage. Her name was Jean Shadrach. And we were totally stunned that in moving around Anchorage and looking, there were no art galleries. Well, I mean, no real art galleries. Howard's Gun Shop had lots of art hanging in it. And Army Kirschbaum, who later became a friend of mine, had a place called the Color Center. And he dedicated his front wall to art shows. And he was an artist himself. But there were no galleries. To me and to Jean, a gallery was a place that artists could show their work, that it was focused on art, dedicated to art, and artists could live and work in the community and actually make a living from selling art. So we were all excited, and we looked around and we found this small place in the Central Building on G Street, 900 square feet. So it was partially put together because we really didn't have a lot of funds to really decorate an art gallery. But the thing that decorated, of course, was the art. And there was a lot of people, a lot of artists here. And so they came in floods to bring us art. That was great. And we thought, well, we only rented it for 3 months. I mean, just to really take a whirl at it in the holiday season to see if this was going to fly. Who knew? But the community was so warm and so friendly. They embraced us. They were excited. And for the next 2 years, really, it was like a coffee shop because people would bring their brown bag lunches, sit on the floor, talk, visit, look at the art, and thankfully buy the art. So it was really a rewarding experience, and the world was our oyster because we had no competition. So there were a lot of things, anything we could think of, back to the if you can dream it, you can do it. There were a lot of things that we wanted to venture into because it was just downright fun, and it was good for the artist. And we went all the way through the spectrums to Ted and Catherine Stevens invited us to curate a major all-Alaska art show. That meant a lot more artists than just we cared at Artique, artists all over the state, to celebrate the passage of the Statehood Act in Washington, D.C. We got a chance to curate that show, take a bunch of artists with us to Washington, D.C., and show their art in the Rotunda. And if you don't think that that was not special for them, it was there for a week, and it was just a wonderful time. And then the other end of that, we actually, at one time, for 4 days, took a group of artists to Prudhoe Bay. And we had an art show for the workers at Prudhoe Bay. We lived in the trailers and gained 5 pounds because you could eat all the time there. But it was really fun. Alcohol was outlawed, but they smuggled it in. And they had music, and they painted some walls. We had a real little gallery there. So the two ends of the spectrum, you thought, this is just, what can I say? It's always work, but it's so fun. And then I always had in my mind that somehow, someday, through the time of the gallery, that I would actually be able to have art available that was an integral part of the community. If we were good enough at it and people loved it enough, it could become an integral part of the community. And in addition to that, sometime during the years when technology allowed us to do so, there had to be a way to get art into the hands of charities and other people so it could be for the good of community. Through the years, that actually happened. And so 45 years is now history. But it's been a wonderful, wonderful path. And I loved it all, every minute of it. So after that, we started thinking about our time in Alaska, and it had been such a part of a multicultural community, and that just having the ability to move in the community that was so multicultural, and it had so many opportunities for women, that became very, very special. And I truly realized this was far, far different than the segregated South I grew up in, with very few opportunities for women. It dawned on me, I already knew it, but it really dawned on me that we were a very special place up here. So we were like a moth to a flame in that Tom went to work for a law firm in oil and gas, and my life at that point was forever changed. My worldview changed. My perception for women's possibilities changed. My perception of my own capabilities changed. And I think I became a different person. And that's when also I knew that we were in the right place at the right time with the right people, because it's really more who I was. Now, having been in the art business for a long time, you do a lot of things, you join a lot of groups and all of that. But there were 3 other people that I didn't have any trouble pinpointing, who actually broadened my horizons as a person with a lot of personal growth. excuse me, the first one was Mayor Tony Knowles. And Mayor Knowles contacted me in 1986 and said, I'm making a request that you join a small group of businessmen to help me work on an economic development plan for this city. The city was still languishing, and he felt that it needed jump-starting with something. And he'd been studying plans from other cities that were similar to our size, and so he had an idea of where he wanted to go. But we worked on that for about a year and a half, and that was different. I mean, I'm an art person. That was really different for me. And I got, am I out of time? Well, anyway, Jane, I have two other people to thank, and can I just say a couple of things? That's really important.
Say their names.
Okay. Anyway, one of them was Ed Rasmussen, who invited me to take a board seat on the National Bank of Alaska. That really broadened my horizons. It taught me a lot about banking. And the other one was Rick Nystrom, who actually challenged me to write and implement a plan for the Millennium celebration for Anchorage. So that really also did try me, and I had said to Rick, you gotta be kidding me. I'm really busy. But he said, no, I'm really not kidding you, and I'd like for you to do it. But I got hooked on my own plan, and it was a fantastic thing. But once again, for me, it was all about people. Just a minute. I mean, after all, it's partly my day. But I want to tell you that something that I have been intoxicated with the Alaska can-do spirit all my life here. And one thing I really learned is that by bringing the people together for a common cause that's nonpartisan and non-political is tremendously powerful. And also the collective thinking, collective energy, and collective spirit can make for absolutely amazing results. I also want to say that I have no doubt that the women of Alaska have contributed monumentally to all the things that have been noteworthy that have been done through the years. I'm grateful for my small part. I'm grateful for my small part in the overall growth of Alaska. And I really, from the heart, have to say that I have received immensely more than I ever thought I would anywhere. Thank you.